Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, I'm going to show you how we went from this 3-week-old stiletto ombre set to this beautiful dandelion yellow ombre set with 3D flower accents. To see how I achieved this beautiful set, just keep on watching. So what I'm going to do is start by soaking off this old set, and the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to clip down the nails as short as possible. And the reason for doing this is so that when we go to soak off the acrylic, we won't be soaking off any extra unnecessary product. So after I'm done clipping down the nails, I'm going to take my extra coarse drill bit, and I'm going to use this to shave down this acrylic as thin as possible. That way it won't take as long to soak off. And the e-file I'm using is the Melody Susie Scarlet nail drill. And to shave down this acrylic, I'm going to be using this at a speed of about 20,000 rotations per minute. Okay, so once I have the acrylic all filed down nice and thin, I'm going to pour some hot water into my soaking dishes, and I'm going to put the attachments over top and pour in 100% acetone. And what the hot water is going to do underneath is it's just going to warm up that acetone to make the soak off process even faster. Once we've soaked for about 15 minutes, I'm going to pull her hands out, and I'm going to use a cuticle pusher to push away all of the lifted product. And as you can see, it's scraping away very, very easily. So this process is very, very simple. Okay, right here, I'm just going to go in with a pair of nail clippers, and I'm just going to clip her nails down just a little bit. And we actually did the soak off and the new set on 2 different days. So this soak off is one day, and the set you'll see me doing in just a moment will be a different day. Okay, so moving on to the set, the first thing I'm going to do is take my cuticle pusher and push back her cuticles. And what this is going to do is it's going to expose any newly grown dead skin. After pushing back her cuticle, I'm going to take my cuticle bit to clean up any newly grown dead skin that was exposed after pushing back that cuticle. So we do this because we want to get all of that dead skin off of the nail plate, because if it stays, it could cause a problem with lifting. Okay, next I'm going to go in with a 180 sanding band on my e-file. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use this sanding band to file over her nail plate very lightly. And what this is going to do is going to remove any oil and any shine from the nail. You want to do this step because if there's any type of shine or oil on the nail, it could cause your set to lift. Okay, so moving on to applying our nail tips. I'm using these long stiletto clear tips, And what you want to make sure you do when applying tips is you want to make sure that the nail tip measures perfectly from sidewall to sidewall of the natural nail. So you don't want it too big and you don't want it too small. And what I like to do sometimes is I will file down the sides of the nail tip to have it where it will fit each individual client perfectly. So that's just something I like to do when applying my tips. Okay, moving forward to cutting our tips down. So we went for more of, I guess, a medium length. She didn't want them too long, but she didn't want them short either. So that's what you'll see me doing here is I'm just going to cut these nails down to about a medium length. Okay, moving on to our shape. We did a square shape. I guess it's kind of like a tapered square shape. It's not exactly wide, but we did thin the side walls out just a little bit, so they could be a little more narrow because we didn't want that wide square shape. And I'm going to be doing this with my e-file again with the 180 sanding band. I used to shape and file my nail tips with a hand file, but I found that it was really hard on my wrists. So I've since started using my e-file with my sanding band, and I find it so much easier, and I find that I'm also able to get a crisper and more clean shape. Another thing I'm going to be doing here while I shape is I'm going to take that e-file as well, and I'm going to use it to blend in that nail tip into the natural nail. And I like to do this because it gives me a much smoother base, and it's going to help with laying the acrylic more smoothly. Okay, next I'm going to be spraying the nails down with some 90% alcohol. And what this will help do is it's going to help with removing some of that shine or oil that might have been left over from when I prepped with my sanding band. And it's also going to help to remove some of the dust that came about from when we were shaping. Next, what you want to do is go in with their primer. You always want to make sure that you go in with a primer. The primer just helps to help the acrylic adhere better to the natural nail. You don't want to skip this step because if you do, you will more than likely receive lifting in your sets within a day or two, or they might actually come all the way off. I like to use a double priming method. The first primer I use is the Young Nails Protein Bond, and I apply that to all of the nails. And then after that, I go in with the Emily pH Bonder as a second primer. And I like to do this double priming method. I just feel like it gives me extra insurance and it makes me feel confidence that my nails won't lift so easily. And it's proved to work because most of my sets last up to 3 weeks or more. So this double priming method definitely works for me. Okay, next I'm going to start with my base acrylic application. And what this is I just like to use the thinnest layer of clear acrylic as a base. And I like to do this under all of my sets where I'm using any kind of color acrylic. And I just think using this clear base helps with reducing the lifting. I find that sometimes when I go in straight with the color acrylic, they tend to lift sooner. I'm not sure what it is, but I just like to do this step first. And also another reason why I do this step with adding the acrylic, the thin layer of acrylic before I start my colored acrylic is because if my client wants to come in and get a fill-in, I won't have to soak off all of the product. I can just simply file down that colored acrylic and I'll still have that clear layer there to start fresh with a new set without having to take off all of the nails and start all the way over. Okay, so the next step we're going to be doing is going in with our first ombre color, the tip color, which is this dandelion yellow color. This color is not from a particular brand because I actually mixed this color myself using chalk and white and clear acrylic. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to be placing my very first bead like right there where that nail tip and the natural nail meet, and I use about maybe 2 to 3 beads to cover the tip of the nail. You don't want to drag the color all the way down to the cuticle, because you're not going to have any room to create your ombre effect with your cover color for your nail bed. So I just take the bead and I place it right there at the edge of the tip and where the natural nail meet. And you also might notice that I'm constantly using the side of my brush to wipe the side of the nail. And what this does is it helps you keep your shape, so that when you go back to start filing and to reshape, you won't have to work as hard to get your shape back. So make sure you do that step. It makes the process so much easier. So just wipe down the sides of the nail with the side of your brush. And remember, don't take the color too far down, because you don't want to take away from making your ombre effect. You don't want to make this color too thin, and you don't want to make it too thick. Another thing you want to make sure that you don't do when applying acrylic is you don't want to put too much pressure on your brush when you're wiping the color onto the nail. You literally want to just use the softest hand as possible, because if you go in with a heavy hand and you place your acrylic bead on the nail and you wipe it too hard, you're technically you're going to just wipe away everything that you just laid down on your nail. And you don't want to do that, because you'll be literally sitting here forever trying to get your acrylic on your nail. So just make sure that you're not wiping the product too hard. You want to use the lightest touch. I also want to add that the size brush that I'm using is a 14, and it is the Pana Kolinsky hairbrush. When I first started, I was using about a size 8, and that's the size I would recommend you using if you're just starting out playing around with acrylic, because it's like the perfect size. It's not too small and it's not too big. You'll have more control over your acrylic beads as well. But as I progressed, I found that the 8 was just becoming too small for me, and it was taking me too long to lay my acrylic, because I was picking up such small beads because the brush was so small. And I think after the 8, I moved up to a 10, and then I did a 12, but I realized the 12 wasn't working either, so I switched to the 14. It was a little intimidating when I first started using the 14, but once I got used to it and once I was able to control how much liquid I put in my brush, it became pretty easy to use this size. Okay, now I'm going in and I'm going to start making my ombre effect. And the color I'm using is from Mia's Secret. It's the Cover Nude Blush, I believe. And the key to ombre, I think, is not going overboard with the product. So you just want to use the smallest bead possible. And you're going to place that bead right at the edge of that yellow, and lightly, very lightly, I can't stress enough, with the lightest hand possible, blend it upward towards the tip of the nail, and that will give you that feathered ombre effect. So like I said, work with as little product as possible. I feel like now I can work with a little more product with ombre than when I first started, because when I first started with ombre, I had a tough time getting it down pat. But once I got to practicing, I found that I found techniques that work better for me. So the key is really to just work with a little product at a time until you feel comfortable with making bigger beads. But I would still recommend just using a little product, because you can always add more if it's not enough. But if you go in with way too much product, it's going to be a lot harder to make that look good. So just keep in mind how much product you're using when you're doing this step. Another thing you want to make sure you're paying attention to when you're laying down your acrylic during this step is when you're laying the bead closer to your cuticle. You want to make sure that your product is not running. Otherwise, it's going to run everywhere and it's going to flood your cuticle. And the one thing you definitely want to avoid when doing acrylic is flooding your cuticles. Because when you flood your cuticle, that means excess product is running over your cuticle and over onto the skin. And you don't want acrylic to be on their skin around that cuticle at all, because if the product is on the skin, it's going to be so much harder to get that off and file that away. And if you can't get the acrylic off of the skin, then more than likely you're going to have gaps between your skin and your cuticle. And you don't want gaps, because when you have gaps, that means that it's more likely that water and oil and all kinds of other stuff will become trapped under your nail. And once all that stuff gets under your nail, that's what's going to start causing problems with lifting. And another way to combat this problem is when you place your cuticle bead down and you find that the cuticle area was flooded a little bit. You're going to see me do this right now. Just take the very, very tip of your brush and wipe it around that cuticle area to clean up any product that might have flooded over onto your skin. Another thing that I think I forgot to mention that's really, really important is you need to keep in mind what type of paper towels that you're using to wipe your brush off on. You need paper towels that absorb product and liquids very well, because you're going to be wiping your brush off on this paper towel. You want to make sure you're wiping your brush off every time you lay a bead, so that any of that acrylic and that product won't get stuck in your brush. Because when product gets stuck in your brush, you're going to know, because you're going to have a hard time placing down smooth beads. So just make sure that you're using a good paper towel with a good absorbency, and you're constantly wiping your brushes off in between acrylic application. The paper towels I use, as you can see, I use the mechanic paper towels. Those are the ones I like because they absorb liquids very, very well. And I normally just get a pack of these off of Amazon. Okay, the next thing I'm going to be doing is also another important step. So whenever you do ombre nails, after you're done with your ombre blend, you want to make sure that you go back over all of the nails and cap them with clear acrylic. And you need to do this because you need to protect that blend from your e-file for when you go back to file and smooth out your nails. Because if you fail to do this step, if you fail to cap your nails with the clear acrylic, when you go back and file with their e-file, you're just going to file all of your product away, and you're going to file the blend that you worked so hard on. So just make sure that you go back and you're covering the entirety of that ombre with some clear acrylic. One other thing that just came to mind, in this video, I'm really just focusing on showing you how I created this set. So I'm not really focusing so much on structure of the nail. I will come back another time with another video that focuses strictly on structure of the nail, including the thickness that you want your nail to be, including like the apex and all of that. But I'm not going to really go over that in this video because, like I said, this video is mainly just showing you how I created this set. So it's not much of a tutorial on how to apply acrylic. I'm just explaining to you in this video what I'm doing to create this set. But like I said, I will come back and make another video focusing mainly on the basics of acrylic application. Okay, so now that my acrylic is all applied and dry enough, this is around the only time I really ever use a hand file when doing my acrylic nails. And I just go in with my hand file. I use a 80 grit nail file, and I just go in and I make sure that I just sharpen up my shape a little bit. I normally do a good job with not having to file so much because, like I mentioned in the clip before, I always make sure to wipe down the sides of my nails as I'm applying my acrylic. But sometimes you can get some of that product can leak over in the groove of your nail, so you want to make sure you separate the side of your nail from that groove in your nail and file all of that away, because that can also be a problem with causing lifting as well. And this is also, like I said, just to clean that shape up a bit. But I'm going to come in later and sharpen my shape up a lot more with my e-file. Okay, next I'm going in with my e-file and my fine drill bit to file over my nails. And this step is to smooth out any unevenness that may have occurred while applying your acrylic. Sometimes the acrylic application is just not as smooth as you want it to be. And instead of stressing over that, I find comfort in knowing I can come back with my fine drill bit on my e-file and smooth out any of that unevenness. And I'm also going to be sealing my cuticle, and that just means going around that cuticle area with the edge of my fine drill bit and making sure that there is no product on my skin. And this is a very important step because this step is kind of crucial with reducing your lifting. And another thing I'm doing here with this fine drill bit is I'm going down the sides of the nail to sharpen my shape up. This is another way I like to make sure my shape is nice and clean. So I just go over the side walls of the nail with the edge of that fine drill bit to make sure everything is nice and sharp and clean. Okay, so I'm done with filing all of my nails and reshaping them. So now I'm going to go in with my 3D flowers. Now, just a little disclaimer. This is only my second time attempting these flowers. They didn't turn out as good as I wanted, but they still ended up cute. So I'm not really sure how to explain this process. I'm using a white acrylic powder and a acrylic brush. I think is a size 6. And I also think that this brush was a little too big for me with creating the 3D flowers. But I had ordered one on Amazon and it just hadn't been delivered yet. So I had to stick with this number 6. I think I ordered a number 4. So maybe the next time I do these with my new brush, I'll be able to get better flowers. So basically what I'm doing is I'm picking up the tiniest bead of white acrylic and I just place it right there on the nail, and I kind of use the tip of my brush to mold that acrylic into the shape of the petal that I want. And I just repeat this process until I get something that looks along the lines of a flower. And once I get my white petals laid, I take a small bead of that dandelion yellow that I use for my ombre color, and I place it in the middle of my flower to, give it that flower look. So that's the best way I can explain it, because like I said, I'm not really too good at this process right now. Like I said, is only my second time doing it, and I think they turned out cute. Okay, now I'm going in with an alcohol wipe, and this is just going to wipe all that dust away from when I filed the nails, so that when I apply my top coat, you won't see any little dust particles under the top coat. Now we're going to go in with our top coat, and I'm using the D&D No Wipe Gel Top Coat, and I'm going to apply this over all the nails, and like on the nails with the flowers, I'm going to try to hit all of the nail except for the flower, because I don't want that flower to be glossy. I want it to be kind of matte and have a nice contrast against the gloss of the top coat. When you're applying your top coat, sometimes you may notice that it may run over on the sides of the nail, and it will kind of mess with the shape of your nail. It'll make it look a little more rounded, and it'll take away from that sharpness. So what you want to make sure you do after applying your top coat is I just take my thumb and I just run it along the side of the nail to wipe off any excess product that might have run over and kind of warped my shape a bit. And since this is a gel top coat, you want to make sure that you cure this in a UV or LED lamp. The one I have is about 82 watts, and after applying the top coat, I just make sure I put my client's hand in for 60 seconds to cure, and that should do the trick. And it's also a no wipe top coat, so there won't be any sticky layer left behind once it's cured. And the final step is I'm going to apply some cuticle oil. I'm just going to apply a small drop to the cuticle and just massage it into her fingers. And I think this gives the nails a nice effect. It makes them look really nice and polished, and I think it's just really the cherry on top of the cake. And once again, this is the finished set. They turned out so gorgeous. I love that dandelion yellow. It's so pretty. And I thank you for tuning in, and I hope you stick around for more videos.